Well, sé sean chanan a hana Gaelic, agus ha has gyfrin ffug yn Alpa, gwharet an tyfynier, agus is y tŵa cwdiwch. Sé sean Gaelic, mae'r hwrs mi, ach, va yn canan gyrach ar sy'n fi gysgrifig, gyrach stoch a mw trichi blianig yn yr as. Sŵas gan yr ysyn, by gyrach gyfrin, charo e sgrifte sias itcher. Ach yn nisje ha Gaelic er fi sgrifig sias. Gwharit sy'n litrachus, agus leorichen, agus ciol cwdiwch change orens rwyt mar sin. Ha fasg 3,000 dynje haas gyfrin an yn Alpa. Yr eir choltas gynne cwntas mirig. A cha mi crytchen gyfer barach gyfrin na sin. Ha Gaelic gahegysg is y sgolchen. Ffug yn Alpa, hanya gyrach ys na helenin, agus y geeltoch, agus ha sgolchen, sonrich a hakinje. An yn atchichin mae'r glasachw, agus dynedjen, agus innernish, agus ys na helenin, mae'r lewis, agus yn chilin skienach, son chicus Gaelic. Ha Gaelic, ek gewoon akemse, na balig akemse, agus inisje ha een mach shinyakum, chicus Gaelic, is na skolchen, is a geeltoch. Maar sin va Gaelic an se stang karen kukeloch, vasgeer lechet blienig in ras. Ach inisje ha fast nas latere, is latere. Agus ha sin je guma forstenach gewissen het achest. Maar sin ha barach dynje haast gebrien, agus a shein, agus a genif skrivig litrachus is na skolchen, so ha fast nas latere inish, agus ha sin je uafzach tolletje mi in gen. We're very lucky in Scotland that we have the Gaelic Language Act, which was brought in almost 20 years ago by the Scottish Parliament, whereby all public authorities must make provision for Gaelic to be used within the organisation, and they must have a Gaelic policy also. And if somebody wants to use Gaelic in business, then they must have the opportunity to be able to do so. So we're very lucky that they do that. We also have a body called Borscht na Gaelic, which is a division of the Scottish Government, and they have the task of supporting other businesses in giving grant funding to both cultural organisations as well as commercial businesses to be able to use Gaelic within that organisation. And to provide funding for arts bodies and funding for community groups who want to deliver activities through the medium of Gaelic. So we're very lucky that we do have that. Well, the Gaelic archives of Canna House are the most important collection of Gaelic song and story archives, language archives in general in the whole world, on this tiny little island. The house was bought by the island was bought by John and Margaret Campbell in 1938 with the aim of establishing a Gaelic-speaking crofting or farming community within the island, where Gaelic was at the heart of all community. The school, the church, the farm, the work, everything, there should be Gaelic involved. So John and Margaret collected these amazing archives, which are world renowned, and I have been working with those archives formally now for 8.5 years, but before that I was using them for nearly 30 years before that as inspiration for my creative work with song, using the old to create the new. The archives consist of songs which have been, I think the earliest song we have probably dates from 17th century perhaps. And we have all the recordings. John conducted 1,500 recordings in the 1930s and 40s from the Western Isles. And these are priceless, obviously, the contributors who are no longer with us, both for the sung language, but also for the spoken language. So I curate all of those recordings as well. Margaret was also a keen photographer. She was one of the first female photographers of the 20th century. And during her life speaking Gaelic and living in a Gaelic speaking community, although she had no Gaelic to start with, she learned it, as did John. They were both learners. But Margaret took photographs of the communities that she was living in, the people who took her to their hearts, and taught them gave them her songs and their stories. And so she photographed them. So we have this precious jigsaw of the Gaelic culture. We have the recordings, the pictures of the people who made those recordings. We have the correspondence of those people to John and Margaret. We have items, artifacts in the house of these people. Perhaps a pair of woolen stockings, which one of the contributors spun and then knitted while she was singing. So everything fits together like a big jigsaw, and that's what makes these archives so important. But what makes the archive even more important is the fact that it was created and collected by 2 Gaelic learners. So it's a great note of encouragement for all learners of minority languages, that you do not have to have the language from this high. You can learn it, but you can still make a world important contribution, and it is so important to remember that. I know myself, Gaelic was not my mother tongue. I learned it. It was my husband's father's mother tongue, and it's my children's mother tongue, but not mine. But I hope that I can still make that contribution through my children. Well, sé jo miscachig a hanna ceol Gaelic, oren Gaelic. Sé style tradition to han. Shaun tradition to. Agus goharit is an Shane, chaviu a clechig instrumentin itcher. Chaviu a clechig file, no boxe, no guitar, no piano, no sabi machine. No, can je gierig en guakit. Agus men hushbi sé style oral a haun, agus va na haren agus na skielken a harst shachet bliene as je bliene van na granien genne ne clown agus a dol shies. Agus vaite klechke goharit na haren nur vaite gopet. Ha tar jiffer shorsen oper a vaun is a chorstjoch. Agus sé oper crua a vaun, a son of ye fudig is na balchichen bike kanau. So stoch gun ro is shane nur a vau jenev banje erischen plet. No, nur a vau mar iesker. Agus so sé jo rhythm a han na haren. Agus vaite shane gierig mar sin. Agus kujach ha style oersig watcher akine van enem oren looi, which mean keeligig oren son walking the tweed. Walking Walking. Nuair a bheith clá agat, pís clá, ar a bhorst. Agus féimi sibh na borinich, arách na borinich go dhéanú. Suí ag a bhorst, clá ar a bhorst, agus a búlach an clá ar a bhorst, agus a séin mar sin. Ho, haran, haran, ho, ruta mar sin, agus ha sin uafsach cútramach rí hef áir an Gaelic go háid. So, bha na daine a séin, fat na húne, gach lá, fat na húne, geba dé a bhaid a dhéanamh, bhaid a séin so hula lá, fat an lá. Agus haid hast go dhéanú, go háid just na hélanin, soas an leoin élanin mar uist, agus leos bí it hast a séin ha áir an díracha cria a cháirsneach. Agus ha sin je uas a fórsneach go bhfuil sin acinne. Magda Sagarsasu was the adoptive daughter, if you want to call her that, of John and Margaret Campbell. She came from the Basque country near San Sebastian when she was 11 years old in 1962. Her father, Saturnino Sagarsasu, was John and Campbell's best friend. They had met when they were young boys. John's mother had an estate near Biarritz, and Saturnino was working there, and they met and they became friends. Magda's mother died sadly when she was very young, and so Saturnino brought Magda and her sister Maria Carmen to Scotland in 1962 to escape the pain of their mother's death and also to escape the hard life that they had in Spain at the time. And basically Magda spent her whole life on Canna. She became intensely interested in the Gaelic songs. She learned to speak Gaelic, only having Basque and a little bit of French when she first came. She came to Scotland. She learned Gaelic from John and Margaret. They would speak Gaelic at the dinner table, French, Basque, a little bit of German, all sorts of languages at the dinner table, multi-language house. And Magda basically stayed her whole life there. She came back to Spain to train as a teacher when she was a little bit older. But apart from that, she spent her whole life almost on Canna, helping with the archives and absorbing the culture and the songs herself. She continued to learn Gaelic herself, and would, I know myself because even still, I find little notes from Magda written in Basque, some in Spanish, some in Gaelic, on her notebooks and things, and it was multilingual. She collected and continued doing the archiving of all the records for us today. And when John died, she moved in to live with Margaret, continued the work of the archives, writing about the archives, writing about the language. And then Margaret died in 2004, and so Magda took over the role of formal archivist in Canna House, which is the job that I do alongside my singing today. And she devoted her life to Gaelic and to Canna. She gave up her life in Spain. She gave up her life in the Basque country for Scotland and for the Gaelic language, which I think is just an incredible lesson that we can all as linguists learn, that if you are from outside of that culture, you can still contribute and save for the rest of the world this important part of our lives. And I think this is why such an event as we are at this weekend is so important. I hope útramach go bhfuil sin ula cála agus sé uin acin díreach mar na hyn rútan. Ha sin ula a farachgin in un rút in na hiá agus ha féimi sin a bhí gópar cála agus a bhí giúnsafug van de hele dunje ele. Stoch veel bjarken, no exemplaren, no bjarken, moeien projecten, no ruteners en vigejano, agus stoch veel usas meinig, sé jo idea ha shit. Fiachi mishin, ruten mishin, agus sé aatje, Chosonrich ha sin. Agus inrút, nar vasne chin suas gynna vale en ich jo va mi gira gefarking gromi gachi. Va mi farking gromi misk na dunje girach mar sin hin ha sin ule en unrút. I'm the archivist now for these incredible archives in Canna House. It is my dream job. And the relationship I had with Magda was very, 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 very special. I first met Magda in 2011, but I knew of her before. I had worked on the archives researching for many years before, singing the songs and using them as inspiration for writing new songs. And I knew of Magda Sagarzazu, but I never met her. But when I did meet her, we just clicked. We had the same passion. And this incredible woman of incredible passion and knowledge just was an inspiration for me. And in 2014, she phoned me up one day and she said, Fiona, I am now going to retire. That's how she spoke, she spoke like this with her hands all the time, And she said, Fiona, I'm going to retire. The job will be advertised next week and you will apply. So I did apply and I got the job. And she was incredibly generous with her knowledge. She wanted me to download her brain into mine. You must have this knowledge. You must keep it in here. There is nobody else to do it. And so I did. We became very close friends. But sadly, very sadly, she died at the beginning of COVID in 2020. She had gone back to Spain for treatment. And she died very unexpectedly. But we spoke every day, just a few days before she died. And the last time I had a conversation with her was 3 days before she died. And she said, Fiona, I have a recording of the songs of the birds on the beach on Canna. But I would like a recording of the birds in Canna House garden. She says, I don't want to hear them singing. I need to hear them singing. And so I said, I'll do that. So I recorded it for her and she was on WhatsApp. She called it WhatsApp all the time. WhatsApp from her hospital bed. So I sent her the recording of the birds singing in Canna House garden, and she said, that's it now. I can see. I close my eyes. I am on Canna. I can see my island, my healing island birds. And that was the last thing that she said to me. But her legacy is, in the knowledge in my head to pass on to the next generation. And it was a privilege to be her friend, as well as to have her as my mentor, and I owe her so much.
Elle était fort des habillés et des grands arbres indiscrets aux vitres jetant leurs feuillets malignament tout près